morning. My name is Susan Reardon. I'm the staff hearing officer, and I call the meeting of Wednesday, June 20th to order. The first item on the agenda is preliminary matters, and have we received any requests for continuances, postponements, withdrawals, or ex-agenda items? No? Crystal?
I'm sorry?
Have we received any requests for continuances or withdrawals?
No.
Okay. Under announcements and appeals, I do want to announce that the staff hearing officer meeting scheduled for July 4th there's no meeting scheduled for that date due to the holiday. So the next meeting will be mid-July. And I have 3 coastal development permits here under the announcements, and they are for detached accessory dwelling units pursuant to the Government Code Section 65852. And pursuant to that section, public hearings are not allowed. However, I can take into consideration public comments that I received. So I'll go through each of them and announce what my decision was. In regards to 1506 Shoreline Drive, I've reviewed the staff report and visited the site. And I can make the findings in that staff report with the addition of 2 conditions. There's 2 elements on the site plan that encroach into the interior setbacks, and there wasn't a modification requested for those. So in order for it to be found consistent with our zoning ordinance, the 2 new conditions is regards to the proposed condenser unit, which is within the west interior setback. It needs to be removed from the interior setback. And if it is proposed in a different location, it can't be located within the setback. And that noise specifications are required to show compliance with the code. And then the second one is there's a proposed outdoor shower within the north interior setback, and that is an encroachment in setback that is not allowed. So all elements, including the shower head, the drain line, and any enclosure needs to be removed from the interior setback. So with the addition of those 2 conditions, in addition to the ones that were already outlined in the staff report, I announced my decision is to approve that coastal development permit. The second one listed is a detached accessory dwelling unit, again pursuant to the state law, and that is located at 1130 Del Sol Avenue. And that one, I've read the site visit and read the staff report and performed a site visit. And I announced that I can make the findings outlined in the staff report and approve that project subject to those proposed conditions of approval. And then the third one is a project at 1115 Oceano Avenue. And it is a proposal to construct a new ADU above an existing 2-car garage pursuant to the state law. And I would like to announce in that instance, I did receive 1 public comment letter. And the concerns that was expressed in that letter was in regards to private view, potential overcrowding, and parking. And those, in regards to overcrowding and parking, state law dictates that these types of units are allowed and they're not go towards density. So those types of issues are things that I don't have purview over. And so therefore, I could announce that I make the findings in that staff report and approve the coastal development permit subject to those conditions of approval that were included in the report. So the second part of under announcements appeals, we've had no recent appeals. So I'll move on to item C, which is comments from members of the public on items not on today's agenda. Is there anyone who would like to address the staff hearing officer on items not on the agenda?
I received a letter for
Can you come up?
on Vine.
Can you come up? Oh, okay. Oh, so you're actually on the agenda.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll get to that one. That's the next one. So seeing no one, I'll close that part of the public hearing. So then we'll move on to the first project, which is 806 Vine Avenue, if the applicant and the case planner would like to come up. And there will be a time here where I'll ask for public comments. Good morning.
Good morning.
Anytime you're ready, Stephanie.
Good morning. So we are here to discuss two modification requests at 806 Vine. The first is an open yard modification to allow the proposed open yard to not meet the required square footage or dimension requirements. And the second is an interior setback modification to allow 2 closets and a bathroom window to encroach into the interior setback. The existing site plan is shown here. And it is a 9,494 square foot RM zoned lot outlined here in pink, and is developed with a single residential unit that was relocated to the site in 1952, outlined in blue. And there is 1 uncovered parking space in an existing driveway. The existing open yard is shown in yellow and measures approximately 5,625 square feet and meets the 20 by 20 minimum dimensions. The project includes relocating an existing duplex to the site from Coast Village Road and converting it to a single-family dwelling. It is outlined here in blue. Some site work to accommodate the relocation, such as hedge removal and site wall removal, and a new 3-car garage to serve both units. So there would be 2 spaces for the relocated unit, and there would still just be 1 space for the existing unit. The open yard would be decreased to 935 square feet and would not meet the 20 by 20 required dimensions in all areas. It is shown here in yellow. And it would be located between the proposed hammerhead driveway and the rear of the existing dwelling. The approximate dimensions of this open yard would be 28 foot 6 inches by 34 foot 6 inches, and the curve here creates some areas that don't meet the minimum 20 by 20 dimensions. The project also needs an interior setback modification, shown here in green on the ground level floor here, but to show the use on the second floor here, it is 2 closets and a bathroom window. The existing duplex is eligible for designation as a structure of merit, and thus the Historic Landmarks Commission has reviewed the project. They reviewed it in total 4 times with favorable comments, specifically noting, quote, "The Commission thanks the applicant for a great project and for saving this craftsman house," end quote. The HLC also accepted both a Phase 1 archaeological report and Phase 2 historic structures and site report for the project's environmental review. The HLC took a straw vote and unanimously supported the reduced open yard for the project at the March 21st, 2018 hearing. And the HLC also determined that the proposed interior setback encroachment is original to the house and noted that it's appropriate to retain this portion of the building, even if it's in the interior setback. Staff is supportive of the proposed decrease in open yard due to neighborhood context. This aerial shows the subject block. This is the subject lot here. The block has 8 through lots. 7 out of the 8 have uses that front both Olive Street and Vine Street. Our subject lot is the only one that concentrates uses on the Vine Street frontage. The project would be contributing to the Olive Street frontage. There are 6 craftsman-style homes with 3 located directly across the street. This is 802, 806, and 806 Olive. So this house would be directly across the street. With 2 units on the lot, it would meet the allowable density. The project includes the relocation of a historically significant building and prevents its demolition. Both units would also feature private front porches for further opportunities for outdoor living. The front porch for the relocated is shown here with access directly off of Olive, and the existing house also has a front porch here. Those areas technically don't count as open yard space, but they do allow opportunities for outdoor living. And finally, Transportation has reviewed the proposed driveway and confirmed that the minimum amount of paving is being proposed, meaning that the project has as much open yard as possible without altering either existing building's footprint or moving the proposed building further into the front setback, for instance. And staff is also supportive of the proposed interior setback encroachment due to it being part of the original historic resource, and no anticipated privacy concerns due to existing landscaping and fencing is shown in these photos here. So this photo is taken from the rear of the existing dwelling looking back, so you can see there's hedges along here and fences. And then this photo is actually taken on Vine Street looking down into the lot, and you can see this existing hedge approximately where this encroachment would be. The project is exempt from CEQA under categorical exemptions 15301, 15303, and 15305. And staff only recommends a standard condition of approval related to the unlikely discovery of archaeological resources based on the submitted Phase 1 archaeological report. And finally, staff has received no inquiries about the project from the public.
Okay. But this hedge here is going to be removed, right? I think it's like on this.
I believe that's in this area here. The hedge that be removed is on the Olive Street.
Yeah, this
frontage.
hedge here is this hedge up here. This hedge down here
Okay, that
is
was the
down
one you're
here.
pointing to. Okay, great, thank you. Would you like to state your name for the record and provide
Keith
additional?
Rivera, architect.
Okay.
Yes, so, we agree with staff's support of the project and their analysis. The project allows a designated structure of merit to be relocated and saved rather than be demolished. We had unanimous support from HLC on the number of times that we've been there and support for the modifications. With regard to the common open yard modification, as you know, this area is multifamily under the previous Title 28 zoning ordinance where the rest of the neighborhood was developed. We have open space which is consistent with those multifamily properties. It's only with Title 30 and the two residence use that the open space requirements come to play that have the larger dimensions. So we feel we're consistent with the neighborhood development pattern. With regard to the side yard encroachment, this is pretty minor in nature. These are closet areas. As staff's pointed out, we have a buffer of distance and landscaping between us and our neighbor, and this encroachment allows us to maintain the integrity of the existing historic structure rather than having to remove a portion of it. So we feel that the resulting development's consistent with the neighborhood, their amounts of open space, density, and we think it's an appropriate project. It saves a historic resource. It provides additional rental housing close to downtown, close to services and transportation in a manner that's consistent with good planning and the general plan.
Okay. I do have just a couple questions before I open the public hearing. In regards to the building pop out here, I think this was a project that was on our agenda a couple meetings ago, or the last meeting we held because we canceled one. And at that time, it was proposed that it appeared that it was proposed that this was going to be reduced in size so that it's 3 feet above the finished floor. Is that now, since you're requesting the mod, it's going to remain as is, or is the existing pop out already elevated above the finished floor?
The existing pop-out is at floor elevation. The intent with raising it up was to make it a bay window, or a architectural projection, rather. And I guess staff's conclusion was that it was not an architectural projection, but a bay window. So I think the applicant and the HLC was fine with it either way, either keeping it full floor height or reducing it to a more bay window appearance. HLC did recommend architecturally creating some sort of bracket-like visual support there. So I think we would probably still do that design move regardless of whether it goes to the floor or is raised up.
Okay. And then I recognize this project's been going through the process for a while, so it was caught in the whole implementation or effective of the ENZO in that. The answer to my question may be there's not any, but when we when I look at modifications, I look at, or I ask what kind of conforming options were studied, and so that the open yard area could be achieved on site. Was there any other options that you had?
Well, we're sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place in the sense that we have an existing structure that's fixed on the site, and we have a historic structure that has a fixed building footprint. And so between those two parameters and the transportation requirements for the turnaround, there really weren't any additional options to explore. We wanted to keep the integrity of the existing historic house, as complete as possible. So it's not like we were going to add any sort of additional open space, above it or anything like that. So I guess the answer to your question is there didn't seem to be any other options given the kind of fixed nature of the two building footprints and just the configuration of the lot.
I know cantilevering certain elements isn't looked upon that nicely by the design boards. In this instance, one of the options I was wondering that this isn't visible from a public street. This understory area or lower level isn't part of the historic structure. So I was wondering if the option was looked at to push this back and it would involve cantilever here, but then this could move up and provide more open yard area, or even then more, just options like that.
Yeah, I think that really gets down to the historic structure and then having this large, broad cantilever architecturally would be totally in kind of opposition to the style of the building, and from a design standpoint just seemed unacceptable from a historic resource standpoint.
Okay. Then that was the other thing I wanted to confirm, that this house has actually been designated. It's not as part of the historic structure, because in the historic structure report it does say it's designated, and it appears it occurred last September.
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
Nicole's not here to back us up, but I think it was part of the whole process with HLC was that getting the phase one approved.
Yeah, because it looked like September 9th that the resolution, they directed to prepare it, and then on the 20th it was actually adopted. Okay. Now, has there been any structural analysis of the historic resource? Is it going to be able to withstand being moved?
We have had it examined by house movers, and they have a plan to relocate it. Basically, take there's some non-historic additions that have been made to it that will be removed. We'll remove the front porch, and essentially they'll be cutting it in half down the ridge line and bringing it in two pieces. So that has been looked at as far as feasibility, and we have someone lined up to do it.
Okay, great. Then how will this understory, how is it, there's a floor plan. Because it's not connected with the resource
Right.
above, it's separate. Is it going to be joint, or is it going to be with, I just explain what your idea is.
Basically has exterior access. In some ways, this whole understory is kind of residual space because of the topography of the site, and then it drops down. We're having to create this understory to support the house up at street level, so it has kind of a historic presence, above the sidewalk here on Olive, and we needed to provide the additional parking. So in some ways, between those factors, the hillside and the parking, this somewhat residual space was just seen as kind of a bonus room type of space. We did look at interior connections during the design process, and the owner wasn't thrilled with the effect that had on the upstairs, the historic spaces of the existing house. So their preference was just to kind of create this isolated bonus room.
Okay. Because our zoning ordinance has provisions regarding bathroom facilities in areas that aren't integrated with the main living area. So
Correct.
this will need to be redesigned because to reduce the potential for having a shower added here, to meet the minimum requirements, we usually don't allow closets right next to bathrooms because over time there's been, not to say this property would do it, property owner would do it, but it would be converted into a full bathroom. So this will be discussed during plan check, just to let you know. It's probably something you'd want to.
Yeah, and we're open to reconfiguring the bathroom.
Okay. Then my other question is in regards to.
Yeah, you can have a bathroom. Yeah.
You want to state your name for the record?
Jacqueline Abud.
Okay. Did you have additional questions? Did you have anything?
I was just wondering if we had to eliminate the whole bathroom because if we were having a rec room down
Can
there.
you speak in the
I just was, if you were asking to eliminate the whole bathroom, so if it was a play area, to have to go upstairs and.
Yeah, no, what I was meaning is that it could only be a half bath, and the size of it would be dictated by the building code and the minimum clearance requirements around the toilet and the sink. And generally, that is either like a 5x5 area or a 3x7 area. And we also, in the areas that aren't adequately connected to the main living area, we generally don't allow closets next to it. I'm not saying you will do that, but just over time we have had instances where it's a shower has appeared. And years ago, early 2000s, we had discussions with the Planning Commission on floor plan configurations, and that was one of the things we talked about. So it was just more of an FYI concern that will probably come up during the plan check process. Then the other question I had regarding for you, Keith, is the porch is right at the setback, and then these steps, they're higher than 10 inches, so they are another encroachment, but there's two sections of our code that allows that without a modification. One is if they are no bigger than the building code requirements for stairs, or another one is the design review board can look at it and give it's not really a minor zoning exception, it's kind of a waiver type thing, but did they have specific?
We didn't bring that specific issue up in that manner, but that configuration is essentially the existing historic configuration. We have lowered the house relative to the adjacent grade versus what it is now in its existing condition. But the HLC and I felt that the porch still needed to have some elevated presence to the street to retain its historic nature. So I guess the short answer is it's larger than the absolute minimum required by the building code, but it's the existing width of the historic structure, so it retains the historic character.
Okay. I would suggest that when you go back to, well, more than suggest, when you go back to HLC to make sure they specifically comment on that. And there's the section in the code for porches and stairways that you can look at. I don't know if I have the section written down.
I'm familiar with the exception on that. So
Yeah, so look at that, and so they can, so it's in the record.
specifically comment on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so those are my questions for right now. I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to address the staff hearing officer on 806 Vine Avenue? Can you come up and, did you happen to fill out a request to speak form or no? Okay, well, come up and say your name, and if you could please fill it out and give it to Crystal before you go, that would be great. And there's a oval button there that you can push to turn on the microphone.
Yes, my name is Cliff Hirschberg. I live at 808 Olive Street, across the street from the proposed building. My main concern is parking. Right now, the building that is there right now, I don't know if it's 2 or 3 bedrooms, but there are 3 cars in the driveway consistently. I walked by this morning, there's 4 cars in the driveway. So adding another 2 you know, bedrooms. It's going to add at least another 2 cars. It's a rental property, so it's not designed for. I mean, it's not a house. You know, it's a rental property. So, and you know, you're adding 3 parking spaces, which is what they need now. Before you add another building to it, then you're going to have, like I said, you need at least another 2 parking spaces, I believe. Olive Street is the first street off of State Street that has all-day parking. So what happens is people that live or work in the area, that's the street they go to because that's the closest space for them to park and get to work and leave their car there all day. So what happens is when I come home for lunch, I end up parking a block and a half away from my house to get to my house. So I don't think, you know, although I don't have a problem with people adding to their property, I would, you know, hope that there would be enough parking, you know, for the people that live there, so it's not spilling out into the streets.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my main concern. So if I can ask a question really quickly, if somebody is building a rental property apartment, is there a specific number of parking spaces per bedroom that are supposed to be? Like if someone built a 5-bedroom.
Yeah, Stephanie, if you want to go ahead and answer the question regarding parking, since you did the analysis of what the parking requirement is for this type of use.
Sure. So the existing house has 1 uncovered parking space, which means they have what's called a non-conforming credit. And so they only need to provide 1 space. And then for the new house, the standard is 2 covered. So they are actually meeting the parking requirement for the site in whole to provide 3 covered spaces for both the existing dwelling and the proposed dwelling. So whether or not it's owner occupied, I think that's what your concern is.
Not
Calling it a rental
necessarily. I mean,
property?
I'm just asking that there's enough parking on their property to, you know, for all the properties that are on that site.
It meets the code.
Okay. So if it were an apartment building and there were 5 apartments and they were all single apartments, what would be the minimum amount of?
It's a different parking requirement for an apartment building versus a house, whether the house is owner occupied or rented. It's the same requirement for a house, but since this isn't an apartment building, we didn't do any kind of parking analysis for parking in apartment building.
Okay. So what is my? I mean, I've said what I wanted to say. Is there another place I can go to discuss this further?
No. Since they're not requesting a parking modification, they're only required to provide the amount of parking that's required by code. And so since they provide, they meet what the requirement is, I have no authority to require more than what is required by code.
Yeah, so is there another department that I can speak to concerning that, or is this kind of the end of the story?
What you could do is you could go to the city council during the public comment period and talk about the parking requirements in general. We just went through our new zoning ordinance process, which we looked at our existing zoning requirements. Parking was one of them, and we did minor changes and some more major changes, and to kind of update them to current standards. So in regards to this particular project and requiring them to provide more parking, there's no one else to talk to because it meets the code. It would be requesting city council, direct staff to look at what those parking requirements are, and specifically in this case, it would be regarding non-conforming parking.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Is there anyone else who would like to address the staff hearing officer on 806 Vine Avenue? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Public comment. So I read the staff report, and I did go out to the site and reviewed the neighborhood. In regards to your requested modifications, I'll start with the interior setback one. That's I think the easier one of the two. In regards to the request for interior setback modifications, as you know, we usually look at what the interface is between the 2 properties and what kind of adverse effects or potential adverse effects that you may have on the neighboring property. In this instance, there are windows, or there is one window that's in the area of over the bathtub. It's not directly, you can't stand right in front of it and look out. And besides, there's a 2-story building, and I think it was a driveway along that way. Or, okay, this is a good show. No, so it's in this area, in here, that the potential adverse effects are very minor, in my opinion, and also by approving the modification, it furthers the main goal of the project, which is to preserve a designated historic resource, which is really important to the city as a whole. So, in regards to the interior setback modification, I can make the findings associated with that. Regarding the open yard area, I realized that this project got caught between two different standards. Our old standard, which was provided percentage of the lot and individual private areas. Now, because you have 2 single-family homes, you need to do the 1,250 square feet. So it's unfortunate on that situation. But then again, there is adequate outdoor area for these 2 uses. As staff pointed out, there's a couple porches, and there is additional area in this beyond the front setback in this area. Although it doesn't qualify to meet our standards, it is providing additional outdoor space. And given the significance of the structure, that to me is a factor that would tip the scale and the supportability of the project. But in regards to the open yard modification, the site, although it has 2 front yards, it's not constrained per se. But what makes it constrained is, like you pointed out, Keith, was the existing development and then the existing house that you're preserving, moving it in here. You want to keep the footprint and the size of the historic structure. So in supporting the open yard modification, I will put a condition on the project, which it appears it won't affect the project, but that if it becomes infeasible to move the house to the site, that the historic structure needs to be demolished, and that the modification becomes null and void. Because the main purpose of this modification is to facilitate the preservation of that historic resource.
Understood.
And if for some reason it can't be preserved, this mod, it's not, is null and void. And then the other condition that I will put on the project, although it will be something staff will look at anyways, is that this proposed half bathroom needs to be redesigned to meet the minimum code requirements.
Understood.
And, just to reduce the potential for a shower being added in that area. Those were the only, then you read, you're familiar with the existing condition that staff proposed. It's just more of a alert the contractor type thing. So just one other comment regarding the plans is in regards to solar, that the staff may want additional information regarding the base elevation to just verify the compliance with the solar ordinance. I know you have information on your plan, but identifying the base elevation.
It's right here.
I see here, but
Yeah, because we have this varying elevation at the property line there. So when you're looking at it the west, that obviously the base elevation in the foreground is substantially different than behind because of the slope. So that was why we're showing the 2 different conditions there.
yeah, they might want additional information just to verify it. I was having problems following it when I looked at it, just to make sure, since I guess it's the opposite side where your encroachment was, but just to make sure. That's just a comment. So with the those 2 added conditions, I can make the findings. I am going to change them slightly just to reflect what we've discussed today regarding the significance of the historic structure in that. So they'll look slightly different when you see in the resolution, but I still approve the project, subject to the original conditions and with the 2 I added. My action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days, and they also have oversight authority of all my actions, and if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, they could call it up during that same 10-day review period, and if either of those would occur, Stephanie would contact you.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Thanks. I'll go to the next item, which is 1936 Castillo Avenue.
Good morning, Susan.
Good morning. You could keep this. Oh, Crystal, did that man submit a request to speak? The speaker slip? Oh, you want to go try to see if you can? Thank you. No, it's fine. Yes, anytime you're ready, Stephanie, sorry.
Good morning.
Good morning, again.
So we are here to discuss an open yard modification at 1936 Castillo, and the open yard modification would allow for the designated non-conforming open yard to be reduced. The lot is a 5,580 square foot RMH zoned lot outlined here in pink on the corner of Castillo and Mission Streets. And it's developed with a single residential unit and a one-car garage with an attached half bath that's shown there in blue. The existing total open yard, shown here, measures approximately 2,060 square feet, but does not meet the minimum 20 by 20 dimensions in all areas, and therefore it's non-conforming. Title 30 did establish allowable alterations to non-conforming open yards and what's to be counted towards designated non-conforming open yard. 10 by 10 minimum dimensions are required, and so therefore only the areas marked A and C, shaded here, can technically be counted towards the designated non-conforming open yard. And those areas total 1,366 square feet. So the proposed project includes demolishing the half bath that's attached to the garage, demolishing a storage shed in the interior setback, demolishing an as-built trellis between this area here, legalizing an as-built deck that's underneath that trellis, and then also doing a residential addition that's outlined here in green. The proposed project would abate all violations listed in ZIR 2011-00165, and the designated open yard would be decreased to 1,121 square feet and would remain non-conforming to the standard 20 by 20 dimensions. So here we can see the existing open yard and the proposed open yard, and the areas that can be counted are shaded. The project does not trigger design review by the Single Family Design Board, and staff is supportive of this proposed decrease in open yard due to the proposed non-conforming open yard meeting the dimension, square footage, and location requirements allowed by Title 30's alterations to designated open yard. Site constraints, because the lot does have two front setbacks, which do change how much area of the lot is allowed to be counted towards both just allowable open yard or designated non-conforming open yard. And because the proposed addition would be modest in size and it would result in a dwelling that's only 67% of the maximum floor to lot area ratio for a lot of this size, and the proposed addition would also respect the required setbacks. The project is exempt from CEQA under categorical exemptions 15301 and 15305. An archaeological letter report was required for the project, and due to that report, a standard condition of approval related to the unlikely discovery of archaeological resources is included in the staff report. And finally, staff has received no inquiries about the project from the public.
Okay, great, thank you. Would you like to state your name for the record and provide additional
I'm
comments?
Steve Howes, the architect for the project.
You have any other comments?
I would just reiterate what is in the application letter, that this is a modest addition. They have 2 bedrooms currently. They have a small child, and it would be very useful for them to have a 3rd bedroom for visiting grandparents because they both have full-time jobs. And the alternative locations, there weren't any on the ground floor. Adding a 2nd story would be cost prohibitive. We explored doing an ADU, but that would lose the existing parking space, enclosed parking space. And currently the garage is non-conforming due to the laundry being located within that, and this addition moves the laundry out of the garage.
Okay. I did notice on the site visit that there's a lean-to here. It looked like it was a water heater, but it's empty now. Is that proposed to be removed? I don't see that on the...
You know, I don't know that I ever looked inside of it, and so I assumed there was a water heater in there, but certainly there could be an alternate location found for the water heater, probably one of those instantaneous just mounted on the exterior of the wall somewhere.
Yeah, the door was kind of mushed in, and I saw pipes, but I couldn't see anything inside of there. But yeah, I mean, because it looks like, but you can see the door was kind of leaning. So, okay.
I would have no problem with that being a condition to relocate the water heater or get rid of that shed.
Okay, that was my only question at this time. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the staff hearing officer on 1936 Castillo Street? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. I went out to the site and read the staff report, and this is an example of a highly constrained lot. Mm-hmm. There's 2 front setbacks. It's a very busy street, Mission, and I have concerns with the open yard area, but it is non-conforming right now. Sometimes when I review these requests, we say there's compensating areas. This site is wider and appears to be more the area that's used. This site here, it's just so noisy and so much going on with this. This isn't really inviting. And I understand the dilemma of needing to expand the house and the constraints. So in looking at the areas, given all those factors, I agree with staff's analysis in the staff report. The site's constrained. It's not a real large house existing. It's a little over 1,300 square feet, and it's going to 1,560. And the impacts potentially of a 2nd story and the cost, that this really is your only option. The one condition that I would like to put on the project is just an identification of the non-conforming open yard area. These all areas are shown, but they're not all necessary to be the non-conforming open yard area because you need to get to the 1250. So, it'd be these 2 larger areas and then a portion of this area. But just what you're showing and what staff accepts as the legal non-conforming open yard, or the approved non-conforming open yard area, should be denoted on the plans just for future reference. So
that's something Stephanie can let me know what to depict on the plan.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Or you can propose and Stephanie could agree or tell you no, alter it this way.
Mm-hmm.
But in regards to the open yard modification, again, it's a highly constrained site, and I have concerns regarding using the area that's more enjoyable because it's screened from the street. But to do an addition of what you're proposing to do, it wouldn't work in the front yard, within the setbacks to create the whole new bedroom. So
Yeah, it wouldn't be desirable to put a bedroom next to the noisy street either.
correct, yeah, and it's a trade-off. You are respecting the setbacks, which is important.
Mm-hmm.
In the open yard area, there is other areas, and it's the person that lives there that's going to be, impact is not the right word, but affected by the open yard area.
And you could see from your site visit that they actively use this area as well.
Yeah. So this is the more appropriate area, and just because there's the front setback here, when they're using it, they don't stop at the front setback. I mean, they use the whole area. So realistically, this whole area is used. It's just per code, it can't be counted.
Exactly.
So with that, I can make the findings as outlined in the staff report, subject to the original condition regarding archaeological resources and my added condition regarding just designating what the approved open yard area is on the site plan. And my action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days. And they also have oversight authority of all my actions. And if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, they could call it up during that same 10-day review period. And if either of those would occur, Stephanie would contact you.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you very
Great.
much.
Excellent. We'll go to the next item, which is 515 Braemar Ranch Lane. The applicant would like to come up to the table.
Good morning.
Morning. Anytime you're ready, Allison.
Okay, thank you. This is a request.
Are you on? I guess you are. No, you're mute.
Thank you. This is a request for a new additional or accessory dwelling unit. The property is located at 515 Braemar Ranch. There is an existing single-family residence on the property. It's approximately 3,371 square feet and has an attached two-car garage. The parcel is 1.5 acres, and the proposed ADU would be located within what's called the remaining front yard. So the proposed ADU, as you can see, it's detached. It's approximately 1,200 square feet, and they're proposing an uncovered parking space to serve the ADU. Because this building is located closer to the street than the main residence, it's within the remaining front yard, and accessory buildings are not allowed to be within the remaining front yard. Therefore, the project is requesting a modification to be located in this area. The the proposed ADU structure would be located 35 feet from the front lot line. Therefore, it does comply with the required front setback. The proposed parking space is generally screened from the street by existing vegetation. The only area where it's not is when you're directly in front of the driveway itself. This new development would comply with our required Tier 3 stormwater management plan requirements. The driveway and parking is permeable, and they're proposing underground chambers as well. Staff is supportive of the requested modification because the structure complies with the required front setback. It's significantly far from the paved road. The paved road is farther than the existing front lot line. So there's an additional approximately 10 feet, I believe, from the edge of the paved road. And although this is technically an accessory building, it reads more as a single-family home from the street. Therefore, staff finds that it's an appropriate location for that building. Staff is supportive of the coastal development permit that's required for this development because there are no coastal issues that are brought up by the proposed new building. It's compatible with the neighborhood and is not near any other significant coastal resources. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. I don't think I have any questions for you right now. If you'd like to state your name for the record, provide additional comments.
Chris Densel, and thank you for your time today.
Okay. All right, and I don't have any questions for you right now. I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to address the staff hearing officer on 515 Braemar Ranch Lane? No, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. And we haven't received any letters, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I went out to the site, and actually I'm familiar with this road or this lane because there's been a couple other ones that I've reviewed. It's popular in this area for these ADUs, which is it's more appropriate because they're larger lots, less impacts to the neighbor. And I also appreciate the stakes. It was staked out there of where it was, and that was very helpful, and it was beneficial. So I really appreciate that. In regards to the coastal development permit, as I said under the announcements, in regards to my review of them, it's limited to Coastal Act policies, and it's not subject to public hearing. So what I'm holding the public hearing part on is your requested modification to allow the ADU in the front yard, remaining front yard. And I agree with staff's analysis in the staff report in regards to the appropriateness of the location. It is outside of the setback. It is screened for the majority of the frontage. There's just a snippet down the driveway, which when you're driving, you should be looking down the road and not down people's driveways. So in terms of screening, the parking, and also the ADU, it meets our code requirements. And I think that's about it, because in regards to its location, like I said, I've reviewed a couple other ones. It is consistent with the neighborhood. There are larger lots. And so you explained, I had a question regarding SWIMP, and you explained that too, on what the requirements. So I don't really have much more to say. So I make the findings outlined in the staff report. Staff proposed a number of conditions, and I assume you've read them and you understand them and you agree with them. Okay, so I will make the findings outlined in the staff report regarding the coastal development permit and the modification, and approve your request subject to the conditions of approval as outlined in the staff report. And this project, or the modification part, is subject to a 10-day appeal period, and has oversight by the Planning Commission. And if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, they could call it up during that same 10-day appeal period. And if either of those would occur, Allison would contact you. Okay?
Good.
Great. Thank you.
Allison, it looks like the more recent sighting got brought before the meeting this morning, which is great.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, good.
All right, so we'll move to the last item, which is a proposal for a lot line adjustment at 125, 127 Eucalyptus Hill Circle. If the applicant and staff would like to come up to the table. Hi. Yes, go ahead. Come sit out here. I don't know if you had one outlined or not. I just opened mine up. Or no. Okay. Anytime you're ready.
So good morning, Ms. Reardon and members of the public. My name is Megan Arsenieck. I'm the staff planner on the project before you. It's a lot line adjustment that has an interesting history, but a pretty straightforward request. What we have is a 28-unit planned unit development up on Eucalyptus Hill Circle. And 27 of the units were actually built out, and the last remaining 28th unit was never built. So we have it. And it's a part of a fourplex building where it was intended for 4 units to be all connected. 28, 27, and 26 were all built. 25 was not built. Only a single family, a single car garage was built on that lot, absent of the residence itself. And that was because there was a joint owner back when the units were developed, and they decided to just use this lot instead for an additional garage rather than build a second unit, although it was intended for a second unit of its own. So in order to build, in addition to that, I should say, what happened is they built this their residential unit 5 feet over the property line, encroaching onto lot 25. Hasn't been a problem necessarily to date because it's been the same ownership, but with the intent to sell this off and build a new unit on it, that lot line adjustment, that the property owner would like to rectify that lot line adjustment to coincide with the development that is on site. So what we have proposed today is an adjustment. So here's lot 26 with the existing residence, and it's actually built 5 feet over the property line. And then here's the one-car garage that they had attached that's on lot 25. Eventually the proposal would be, or separately, the proposal is to demolish this garage and build a new unit. That's a separate application than what's reviewed today. Today is just the lot line adjustment itself for shifting it over 5 feet to coincide with the existing development. The timing of this is important because if we move over this line, we would have just an accessory structure alone on a vacant parcel, which is against the zoning code. So the requirement is to first demo the garage and build the new unit, and then adjust the lot, have the lot line adjustment recorded after final occupancy. So the request is just a lot line adjustment for 5 feet over to rectify the current building condition.
Great, thank you. I do have one question or clarification. You indicated that the requirement would be to demo the garage and build a new unit. What the zoning ordinance is concerned about is having accessory space without a main building. So another option is to convert existing area to a unit, because that was a question. There's a garage and then there's attached hobby room, right?
Correct.
So it could also mean the conversion of that hobby room to a studio unit. Is that correct, or?
It could. That was explored, I think, in the past.
Okay.
The concern about the way this unit is built up, there's not adequate fire separation walls between the garage and the residence, and it doesn't meet code as a residence. So it would require some upgrades to convert it to a residential structure, but certainly that is an option.
And I think the condition that you proposed, I was just concerned about requiring a demolition of it. It just needs to, it says here on Exhibit A, room number 1A3, just says submit an application for and obtain a building permit for and complete the construction of a residence.
Oh, that's correct.
So that's fine.
That leaves it open.
Yeah, okay. I just didn't want to. Okay, great. Thank you. That was my only question right now. Would you like to state your name for the record and provide additional comments?
Hello, Susan. Megan, thanks for your help. Terry Malinowski, representing the owner, and I think Megan explained everything. I don't have any further comments.
Okay,
I think
great.
so.
Thanks. So I don't have any more questions. I will open the public comments and see no one in the audience. Have we received any letters or none? Okay, so I'll close the public hearing. This is an interesting property. How it was approved for the 28 units, but only 27 was built, one of which is over a property line, and then the remaining hobby room, but who knows what happens back in the 70s.
Right? Who was watching that?
Yeah.
And it's a big garage. It's an RV garage. Yeah. Interesting.
So yeah, that type of thing. Hang on. That is interesting. So I understand the reasoning behind the lot line adjustment, technically, right now, it doesn't meet our code because there is an accessory unit with accessory space with a garage on a lot that doesn't have a main use. So the lot line adjustment itself wouldn't affect that situation because it is an existing situation, and it wouldn't make it any worse. But since there is an approval being requested, I can't authorize or I can't approve the lot line adjustment that's inconsistent with zoning. So it's like a circular argument. So I've reviewed staff's staff report. In here it explains regarding the lot size, because it is RS 15, which is 15,000 square feet minimum lots. However, it's PUD, so then that doesn't apply. So in terms of the resultant lots, where they're going to be, one will be 28, almost 50, and the other one's going to be almost 2,700. That's still consistent because it's a PUD development versus under the base zone. So other than that, I agree with staff's analysis. I reviewed the findings. I reviewed the conditions. Have you you reviewed the conditions of approval and understand them? Agreed?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I have, and we agree.
Okay. There's just one, as you can tell, I'm supportive of the lot line adjustment. It's appropriate. But I would like to make some minor changes to clarify that condition that I just said, Roman numeral 1A3, that it says submit an application for and obtain building permits for and complete the construction of. I want to make it clear what complete means, that it needs to receive the final building inspection sign-off or the certificate of occupancy for the construction of the residence, so that it's clear what we mean by complete. So that's the only change I would make. I'm going to make to the proposed conditions of approval.
Acceptable on this side, thanks.
Great, thanks. And then, it doesn't affect open yard or anything. So with that alteration to that condition, I can make the finding outlined in the staff report and approve your lot line adjustment. And my action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days. And they also have oversight authority of all my actions. And if they thought this needed additional discussion before them, they could call it up during that same 10-day review period. And if either of those occur, Megan would contact you.
Okay, great. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Don.
Appreciate it.
I adjourn the meeting.